This is absurd, as recent reports have linked the St. Louis Blues to star forward Mitch Marner, and this makes sense with a star player in St. Louis reportedly being shipped out by the team this summer. We're going to break down all that and more later on this episode. Before we get into that, if you're a part of the 90% watching this and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, make sure to go down and hit it. It helps us out a ton, and in return, we'll give you updates from all around the National Hockey League, your St. Louis Blues, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. But with that, Darius, we get off straight into the first topic today, where we've been seeing reports coming out now that the Toronto Maple Leafs are officially eliminated from the playoffs, and we see the St. Louis Blues have been linked to Mitch Marner this offseason. Now, the biggest thing is Mitch Marner set to hit the open market, will cost a pretty penny. Right now from Scotiastat, and shout out to them, go check out their social media. They have him projected at a 7-year contract at $12.2 million. Now I'm going to kind of throw it to you. With this contract, it's going to cost a lot of cap space for the Blues. Do you think this makes sense before we get into how this would work on the Toronto side as well?
It could. And I mean, both teams could make this work in a sign and trade, which a lot of people are not talking about. Everyone's saying, where's Mitch Marner going to go? Because it looks like he's as good as gone from the Toronto Maple Leafs at this point. And a lot of people are pointing fingers to the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Chicago Blackhawks, a lot of other teams. But no one's really talking about a sign and trade because the one thing that a lot of people are missing is that he can only sign for 7 years on the open market. And I think he really values that eighth year. And that's why, he hasn't officially parted ways with the Leafs yet or anything like that, although it looks like they are headed that way. But I think he really wants that eighth year. So I wonder if the Leafs are going to try and work with him because they are still negotiating at this point in time, from everything we've heard, to try and come up with a contract with that eighth year and with another team for a sign and trade that could include from the St. Louis Blues. We're going to get into it in a little bit. Jordan Kyrou, and a lot of people have been talking about him, and I feel like the fan base in St. Louis is really split on Kyrou at this point in time. I feel like they're kind of the same player. Obviously, one's a little bit better than the other. We'll get to that in a second as well. But Mitch Marner is going to command, I think, at least 13 to 13.5 million dollars at this point on the open market. Somebody's going to pay him that. Somebody will, whether it's the St. Louis Blues or not, or the Toronto Maple Leafs in a sign and trade. Somebody is going to pay him that, and I think it could be the Chicago Blackhawks. Everyone's pointing fingers to that team. They have the cap space to do it. Bedard needs somebody to play with him, and it could make some sense. This is now at this point in his career an over 100-point player. He plays in all situations. He can play on the power play. He can play on the penalty kill. Obviously plays 5-on-5, and his numbers speak for themselves in the regular season, 5-on-5. But at the end of the day, he's not a playoff performer. We know this. I don't think he can be a number one guy on a team that would win the Stanley Cup as well. So you have to consider that. But a lot of people are saying the same thing about Jordan Kyrou on the other side for the St. Louis Blues. So I think it's an interesting idea that would take kind of the same player, but you would just have obviously a higher cap hit with Mitch Marner, but you would get more point production than maybe you can build out the rest of the team around him, which you wouldn't even have to build the team. The team is there right now. The majority of the players, at least, are locked up.
And I mean, the big thing is, listen, if you're looking at a roster with Mitch Marner coming in, I do have him just tossed in with a $12 million salary cap in this picture. But the big thing is, listen, Mitch can go out and put up 100 points. We've seen it once in his career, but he came very close multiple times on the crisp of 98, 99 points. But Mitch Marner can really perform in the regular season, which would help the Blues get into a better position, maybe change the scenery, a less noisy market for him to come into. But there is some complications. Signing Mitch to this contract with Robert Thomas going the other way would leave them with a projected of $1 million in cap space. You can pause and you can look through this. I brought a couple guys up that could fill in some spots. I mean, Dvorsky is a guy that could come in and fill out Matthew Kessel down there as an extra defenseman. We know Fasca wants to return, and we've seen Armstrong speak on this as well. So they would have to get this figured out. And the biggest question mark as well, if you bring in a bigger cap hit, what are you going to do with your backup goaltender right now projected for a contract 3 years at $3.8 million roughly? This would be an incredible contract to bring Hofer in on his age 24 to about 27 on this deal. I mean, looking at this, there is a lot of options. You can move on from Robert Thomas. We've seen fans speak on wanting to move on from some of these defensemen to get a little younger. We know Nick Leddy is a piece you can move on from. Justin Falk could move on as well. You have some options. Krug's going on LTIR. Do you think there is a world if they could do this one for one, get Mitch Marner on an 8-year deal, bring this in, still free up cap space? Does this make sense for St. Louis to kind of give two guys a new change of scenery?
It could, and I wonder what Mitch Marner does with a change of scenery. Obviously, this is not a market where he's going to be able to hide either, right? Which a lot of people are talking about. St. Louis Blues fans are absolutely unbelievable. So, the support there, like he's not going to be able to hide. The fan base is there, obviously. It's not somewhere like the Florida Panthers or anything like that, but or some other teams around the league. But Mitch Marner, it could make some sense, especially in the regular season, right? Like your baseline would go up in terms of point production, and he can help on the penalty kill. On the other side of things, though, and we haven't mentioned it yet in this episode, is I think Blues fans, some of them at least, and on the other side of things, maybe you don't want to rattle the cages at all. You went to game 7 overtime of the first round against the Winnipeg Jets, and I still think this is a very good team. And you have the majority of the team locked up. Like you mentioned, the players who aren't locked up do want to return. Maybe you don't want to mess with the chemistry. You want to bring back your backup goaltender, which you probably can't do if you do this move. And obviously, it only leaves you with $1 million left. So that is the other side of things. Maybe you want to look out for that. But again, he raises your baseline, Mitch Marner, and he can play in all situations. I think he does make the team better, but if you're trying to win a Stanley Cup, I just don't know if that's a move that makes any sense. I think you're better off just keeping Jordan Kyrou, who's kind of the same player, but makes less.
And I mean, I think the big thing is if Kyrou comes out or if management is very displeased with him and they say, hey, you have to leave, this would not be a terrible option. Bringing in a guy the cap's going to raise, but I think it does hinge on moving out some contracts on the back end. Like I said, you can pause, work your way through. Go ahead and leave a comment if you like this idea or if there's someone that you would move out in particular to bring in Mitch Marner on possibly a sign and trade, or would you rather just pay more in the open market? But Darius, we got to get into the second part with the guy possibly going out, and that is Jordan Kyrou. You can pause and look through his stats, Loose fans. Kyrou is a guy that has been very productive in the regular season, had a couple playoff runs, but overall a 70-point player that has been very good at goal scoring, which something Toronto really could have used in that 6-1 loss we've seen. But Darius, looking at this, we pretty much know Mitch Marner is going to end up walking in free agency or in a sign and trade some sort. It seems like all signs are pointing towards this. Right now, with the Leafs' current roster, we know there's a lot of gaping holes, but do you think getting someone like Jordan Kyrou, you might have to give up more assets or maybe even a one-for-one swap, which doesn't happen often, but do you think Kyrou is the type of player that would fit in this Toronto market and with a new scenery around him?
Well, he's from here. First of all, he grew up in Toronto, so there is that, and he knows what the fan base is about. I assume he grew up a Leafs fan as well, so all of that ties into it. But you know what? Like you're gonna get nothing from Mitch Marner at this point. And I've been very vocal about the fact that Brendan Shanahan should probably pay for all of this with his job at this point because they should have moved off of this player a couple of years ago. But if you can get anything from Mitch Marner and his rights right now, I think you do it, right? If you can get Jordan Kyrou into this team and you're giving up Mitch Marner the other way, that's fine if he's going to walk for nothing anyway. It doesn't really matter if he fits into the team or, is a perfect fit, I should say. Obviously, you want a player that's going to fit into the team, but he can still help the team. This is a very good player who's putting up, like you said, 70 points a year. He's on a pretty reasonable cap hit for his production, especially with the cap going up. So I definitely wouldn't hate this on the Leaf side. I think this would actually be a pretty good move. You'd get a very good player back for Mitch Marner. Obviously, it's not equal value, but instead of losing him for nothing, obviously you give him that 8th year on the contract, and in return you get Jordan Kyrou. So I think that that's actually a great move for the Toronto Maple Leafs to kind of recoup that, because without Mitch Marner, if he walks, with some of the contracts you're going to have to sign, and Matthew Nyes and obviously Joseph Woll's contracts kicking in, you just extended Jake McCabe as well. You don't have that much salary cap space to work with. We don't know what Tavares is going to get, even if he is returning at this point. So things can get a little crazy, and maybe they're waiting till next year to sign a big free agent. But you're going to have guys like Easton Cowan on the team this year with the cap situation that they're walking into next year. So, if you can get Jordan Kyrou out of this, I think that that's a great win for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Some, good asset management in that way.
And I mean, Leafs fans and St. Louis fans, is this the deal you would like to see? Both players seem like they need a change of scenery. Right now, St. Louis Blues fans seem like they want Kyrou gone. They feel the exact way in Toronto with Mitch Marner. Go ahead and leave a comment. What do you think a good hypothetical trade would be? Would it be a one-for-one? Would this be where one team has a throw in a sweetener? Probably the Toronto end. And Leafs fans, would you take back maybe a bad contract? And I don't want to say bad, but someone like Nick Liddy in this deal just to eat more salary cap? Go down and leave a comment while you're down there. Make sure to like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We're going to be back with content all summer long. You're not going to want to miss it. I mean, it's been crazy so far. So keep your eye for that. But I've been your host, Mark, like host Darius, and take care.